As somebody who's worked with 7, 8, and 9-figure businesses, I believe that organic content is the most important aspect of marketing. Let's talk about it. What is up, guys? Hope everybody is having a great day. Welcome to an episode of Thinking Out Loud, an episode where I just kind of talk about what's going on in the market, what I'm seeing, and overall how you can apply what I'm thinking into your everyday content and marketing strategy as a whole. And so lately, I've been seeing a lot of people talk about organic content, and it's content at scale, whether it be on social media, whether it be internally. And it's kind of funny because when I first started my marketing company unofficially in 2019 and officially in 2020, organic content was really what I focused on, and not even mostly video. I focused on video, I focused on graphic, focused on written word. But as time progressed, I've started focusing on video more. But I've always been an organic guy for a couple of reasons. One, I've always been really nervous about losing people's money when it comes to running paid ads back in the day. And so I never really offered that as a huge service because of the fact that if I create content for you, there's tactical deliverables that you can see. But if I say I can run your ads for you and you give me $3,000 and I don't get you a lead or I don't get you any customers, that's a harder business to build because you really have to be successful, and it's really dependent on how much money the client is willing to spend in the paid acquisition phase. So for rule of thumb, if a business comes up to you and says, run my Facebook ads and I'm going to spend $300 a month, you're going to have a hard time justifying like if it's worth it. But if a business said, hey, I only have 500, this is back in the day, of course, but if a business said, I only have $500 to spend on content, I could do the short form, I could do the graphic content, I could do a lot of stuff and give them something to build a relationship. And so today what I wanted to talk about is my ultimate thesis when it comes to marketing, and it's that organic content, especially on social media and really in general in your marketing, is the most important and foundational piece, bar none. Now, you're going to hear lots of other people talk about why they think their form of marketing is the most important. Like you'll hear advertisers say it doesn't matter how good the content is if nobody sees it. Or you're going to hear people say that people are looking at a certain social media engine or a search engine, so that part of marketing is most important. But I'm going to break it down why I feel like organic content really trumps everything. And so the first reason is the fact that it's the foundation of all other marketing. And so an experience in my own life is I've been blessed to work with lots of paid media agencies. So for example, I work with, let's say, a political client. We develop the videos. Once we develop the videos, we give them to a paid media firm and they run them on streaming, TV, Facebook, all of those places, right? And even though I've always believed in organic content, the fact of the matter is I've never seen a paid advertiser ever say that the reason why the ads weren't working was because of the placements. I've always seen paid advertisers say that the ads aren't working well because of the creative. And so if you're running paid ads, I think it's one of these things where you need to double down on how good your creative is, because in my opinion, you can have great creative and okay placement and do just as well, if not better, than great placements with really, really bad creative. And so I've learned that working with lots of paid advertisers that their job is to take your creative and place it, but without great creative, their placements don't hold as much weight. And so that's one of the things that I'm really starting to see when it comes to organic content in general and really the creative space in general, is that if you have great organic content, you'll be able to judge what will make a great ad based on how it performs, right? So if I take a short form video that's 30 seconds, that's scripted out, and I post it on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube Shorts, right? Let's focus on those 4 platforms for now. And it does really, really well. Well, now I can give it to the paid media people and they can place it where it needs to get placed, but I know it will do decent as an ad because of the fact that it did decently on organic. And so I think what this tells you is that regardless of where your creative is placed, the creative being the unique value proposition is ultimately what matters most. And so, like I said, organic content is the foundation of all other marketing. But on top of that, it's the easiest to get started, right? So going back to 2020, 2019, and even 2021, I always knew that I could build a relationship with a potential client because of the fact that I could start giving them organic content right away. So like back in the day, what I would do whenever I didn't necessarily have a lot of clients is, let's say I was working with a guy who wanted to promote his personal brand, right? I could literally take my camera and I could take my equipment. I could go to his office. We could film 5 short form videos. I could spend the day editing them, and then I could send them to him, right? And then not only did he have the tangible, tactical deliverables because I was doing organic content, but it was easy to repeat that process over and over versus telling somebody I can run Facebook ads and not trying to charge them. And I'll tell you right now, when it comes to running Facebook ads, and you'll oftentimes hear people say like, we'll get you 100 leads or we'll get you 20 leads or you don't pay. What they basically mean by that is like, you still have to pay for the Facebook ads, but what you don't have to pay is for them to maintain the campaign. So how it works is you give them a lump sum of, let's say, $5,000, and then they start running the ads, and they tell you that they need to spend $50 a day. So now you're in 5,000 plus 4,500. Now you're in 9,500, and now their rate is, let's say, $2,000. Well, if the ads don't do well because all they're doing is placing and they're not actually making the creative, they really collect a lot of profit on the front end. So if they need to keep you for 30 or 60 days longer, they'll do that, and they're able to do that, and it's not losing money on their end. That way they can work to make it right. And then if you say, I'm done with this company, they end up really killing it because they got to keep all that front end money. So that's kind of a tangent, but I'm just here to tell you, like, that's how those systems, when you see those offers online, work. And so with organic content, going back to that, if I told somebody to, let's say, buy a $60 mic, right, they could start creating content today that could go out on social, right? There's no real preparation of getting data lists and doing placements. Or if it's, for example, like SEO, it doesn't take a lot of time to get started versus other forms of marketing. For example, going back to SEO, like there are great SEO companies out there, and I've worked with some, but there are a lot of them who are not really good at what they do, in all honesty. And unfortunately, what happens is they say they need 90 to 100 days to get started. And I've seen the same wheel where they'll get started, they'll drop the ball, and then the next SEO company you bring in says that they need longer because the first SEO company failed. And like the reason why I think that you should focus on marketing that you can start today is the fact that you have more control of it, right? If you utilize an SEO firm, you're going to be waiting 3 to 6 months to see anything. Same thing with paid advertising. But when it comes to organic content, you can start creating today and kind of seeing what the market feels without really having to worry about anybody else. And so on top of all that, it's easiest to create at scale, right? I tell everybody when it comes to organic versus paid, I think that there's a dichotomy that you need both of them. But what I also know is that if Facebook ads are going well, in order to get more leads, you have to spend more money. And then as soon as you turn that campaign off, the leads stop coming in. Same thing with Google, same thing with SEO. It's a very capital intensive game. And I've never met a paid advertising person who believes in a paid acquisition strategy so much to the point that they were willing to go get a second mortgage on their house, get a 50% line of credit, and then run that play in order to make that money back, right? Because if you could get a 5-to-1, a 10-to-1 return on ad spend, that means that you'd be willing to take as much money as you possibly could get and put it into this system because you'd be able to cover the interest and cover everything as a whole. But what I do know is that once you start to see organic content work, it makes all the other conversations easy. And then from there, you're able to scale that even more. So if you're posting, let's say 2 videos a week and you see that you're generating leads, it's easy to go to four posts a week because of the fact that all of a sudden you just know what the market wants and you know what it requires. So like you can double your output. And then from there with AI, we haven't even talked about that, but you can literally take your videos, convert them into graphics, carousels, written word. And it's a lot easier to scale versus having to find more money to put into more ads to get more leads. And when I talk about it being the easiest to scale, I think a lot of people say, well, what's the ROI? And so one, my next point is the fact that organic content is the only form of marketing that lasts in perpetuity, right? So if you run a Facebook ad, campaign and you turn it off, leads stop coming in. If you run a Google ad campaign and turn it off, leads stop coming in. Same thing with SEO. But if you take your organic strategy very seriously, you can generate leads 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, and even 12 months down the road. And you have the content in the market to the point where people will always be able to find you. So if we think about it like this, let's say I have a service-based business, right? Let's say I own a painting company. I've used painting before, but it just makes the most sense. And let's say I can profit $3,000 on every house that I paint. Well, if I say, okay, I can profit $3,000 and multiply that, let's say, by 3, I tell myself I'm going to invest $9,000 a quarter into content and organic and social media in general. And if I can get 3 jobs, it makes back the money. Now, people will say, well, I thought when it comes to marketing, you want money in, money out. Well, the fact of the matter is, first off, a lot of people don't necessarily understand what it costs to get a lead and to actually get a purchase in whatever industry they're in. And the fact of the matter is, in business and in marketing specifically, they always tell you whoever pays most for the customer wins. And so if you're going to go the paid route in a lot of campaigns, you're not necessarily even going to make your money back right away. And you're going to have to continue to pump money into it in order for it to work. When it comes to organic content, let's say, going back to the painting analogy, if I can get 3 houses in the quarter from my content, the great thing is my content is still out in the market. And so I think that a lot of people overlook organic content marketing and social media marketing because of the fact that there's no clear, I post 1 video, I get 3 leads. But the way you have to look at it is that 1 video can get you leads today, can get you leads a year from now, and can even get you leads 10 years from now because the content that you post online lasts forever. And so my last point that I want to talk about is the fact that organic content is the only true separator of building a brand, right? So as somebody, like I said, I focus on the organic, the creative, and the strategy side. But as somebody who talks to a lot of people, let's say, who do Google ads, right? Or who do SEO or who do Facebook ads, they always use numerical quantitative metrics in order to determine how good they are, right? So you may see people say, well, we're the best because of the fact that we have 100 5-star Google reviews. And so like they think that that's a great marketing point. But what I understand about the consumer is that if you're saying that you're the best because you have 100 5-star Google reviews, as soon as I find somebody with more than 100, that now negates your whole value proposition. Same thing with Google ads, right? If you tell me that you can get a 5 to 6x return on your Google ads, first off, I don't know if you're telling the truth, but on top of that, as soon as I find somebody with a better ROAS, I'm going to go with them because you've put into the market that your value proposition is this, and this company has shown me that it's better. Therefore, you've almost canceled yourself out in the situation. But when it comes to organic content, I think if you do it right and you focus on your experience and what makes you unique and how you do things, over time, it'll allow you to separate yourself from people, and people won't even think about your competition. They'll just want to solely work with you. I've learned this in my life that because of the content I put out into the market of who I want to work with, there have been lots of times people have called me and I kind of talk about what I do and they stop me and they say, I already know what you do. I already know who you've worked with. Let's meet to figure out how we can get started today. And I've seen it happen in my life over the last 6 years. So I'm saying this from a perspective of not just I think it works. I'm saying it from a perspective of I've seen it work in my own life. And so when we look at the purpose of organic in general, right, there's a couple things that we have to analyze. The first thing is that it's great for external brand awareness, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is. Organic content is the best way to make people aware of what you're doing. Because if you just start off by creating a bunch of ads and then putting them out online, Well, what people are going to do if you create a bunch of Facebook ads is they're going to go look at your organic content to see if you're legit and to see if you're active on the presence. Because if you spend a lot of money on ads, but you're not putting any into organic creative, that comes across as a red flag to people in any industry that you're in. And so external brand awareness is a great purpose of organic creative. But even if we bring it internally, I think that one aspect of marketing, branding, organic content creation that gets overlooked is how you can use content to build internal systems, right? So if you talk to a lot of people in business will say things about SOPs, and they'll say things about trying to figure out a training process. And I think that organic content is great for something like this because you can create a video once, it lasts forever, and the better that you make the videos, the less you can remove yourself from the process. So as far as your internal systems, I think that organic content is sometimes overlooked, but I think that it's one of the great multipliers that can help you scale your systems and processes and create a repeatable process that works for anybody who comes into your ecosystem. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. The fact of the matter is, I believe organic content is the most foundational form of marketing. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in my clients' lives. I've seen it in lots of people's lives. And so I highly encourage you to start creating organic creative today, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to separate you more than any Google campaign, Facebook ad campaign, SEO campaign, or anything that has metrics, is the ability to build your brand where people are paying attention. Have a great day, and God bless.